When Oscar McFall and I had our first meeting to discuss the possibility of the university hosting this event, I remember distinctly asking if the mimeograph was indeed a Gestetner machine. As I said, Gestetner, I moved my arm, just so. And he laughed because he said that that was what everyone of a certain age, I presume, does when they say it. A flood of memories came rushing back. Me with my mother in the office she worked in a basement near Euston Station. In the school holidays, she would pay me extra pocket money to print leaflets for the JHDA, a group of young training hospital doctors who were challenging the might of the British Medical Association. There were many days and evenings I spent turning that handle, printing leaflets and mini posters that would then appear by stealth on hospital notice boards. Viewed as subversive, they were removed, but of course they reappeared over and over again, as fast as we could print them. This two-day event has great meaning for me now, not least because I am aware of the relationship between forgotten memories connecting and informing my conscious daily practice. And along with Tom Grove, who's over there, I teach a third-year architecture studio here in the Department of Architecture, rejecting the corporate and digital suffocation of the handmade, the serendipitous error, and the beauty of the hand-printed line. Our studio embraces the radical potential for subversion embodied in this machine. The ability to communicate under the radar to many, many people is a model we value. But strangely, all our talk of revolutionary architecture and events, somehow we manage to overlook the pivotal role of the mimeograph in this historical, political continuum. Speaking of the studio, we have been extremely fortunate to have our students work with Agnes, Branko and Oscar this week. So for 3 days, the students were engaged in a workshop. And the exhibition of the work that they produced is all up there on the mezzanine. Please do feel free to have a look. We have decided, and this just happened on Wednesday when we were sitting on the mezzanine with the students, we've decided that Alt Går Bra, everything will be okay, is to be our studio motto. So we're going to print it really big and put it up so everyone can see it on a daily basis. The extraordinary uncertainty that our country faces right now leaves us all fearing what lies ahead. The optimism that Alt Går Bra embody are true to our spirit, and like the mimeograph, we hope that by commenting and communicating, we can, in our small way, effect change for good. So, without further ado, let's begin. Thank you.
To introduce myself then, my name's Oscar McFall, and together with Agnes Nedregard and Branko Brewer and Winkelried, we form part of the art group Alt Går Bra. And so we're based in London, in Bergen in Norway, and Paris, France, where our work is about the intersection between art and politics. And so we disseminate our work and produce a variety of different artwork and publications on duplicating machines, which we've been doing now for about 5 years.
The time of mimeograph printing reveals itself as a radically different time than that of both manual and industrial printing. Marx gives an account of the historization of the means of production. The hand is the means of prehistory. The tool, that of the era of manufacturing, and the machine, that of the modern industry. As described by Marx, the machine has 3 components. First, the motor mechanism that puts the whole in motion. This motor can be located either outside the machine, as it is the case with natural resources such as wind or water. The motor can also be located inside the machine, as it is the case after the invention of the steam engine. The transmitting mechanism is the second component of the machine, according to Marx. So the transmitting mechanism is in charge of regulating, dividing, and distributing the motion from the motor to the working machine by the use of wheels, ropes, gears, and so forth. The third and final component is the working machine itself, which performs the operations that were formerly done by manual work and mostly uses altered versions of the tools originally made for handcraft. The mimeograph lies somewhere between a tool and a machine. The motor mechanism can be either the manually operated crank or the electric motor. The transmitting mechanism distributes motion to the spinning drum or drums, and depending on the model, motion can also be distributed to the feeding and receiving mechanisms. The original handcraft tools that the machine incorporates are the silk screen, now mounted on drums, and the impression roller. The machine basically replaces the paper feeding and the inking and rolling over the master to make the actual impression. The other tasks, the rest, need to be made by hand. Adorno finally discloses what interests us the most here today, which is the role of the mimeograph. He says that the mimeograph is the only suitable means to repeal the barbarism of progress. And this is how he speaks about it. I quote, "If the invention of the printing press inaugurated the bourgeois era, the time is at hand for its repeal by the mimeograph, the only fitting, the unobtrusive means of dissemination." End quote.
The people who produced that was BIT. They're probably the most important mimeograph outfit of the time, producing a huge amount of stuff. As you can see, an information help service funded by John Lennon, based in Ladbroke Grove.
Mimeography, typewriting, hand-drawn art, and other forms of mechanical reproduction have together reflected the diffusion of skills across industrial and office boundaries. All types of skills and levels of technological access were essential to how communities created internal and external communications.
Now, this is one of my favorite publications from this period. It's Heroes Unlimited, produced by Paul Neary, and this is from 1967. And it was one of the first comic zines outside of the US encouraging communication between fans and the producers, which was Paul and Anthony Roche.
The one in the top right-hand corner and the bottom one, they're kind of self-portraits. Yes, I used to have hair 35 years ago. But they were done fairly simple line drawings. The only real black area there is the hair. And you'll observe as well that the iconography of the duplicator, the number of fanzines that have pictures of duplicators on them is quite a lot. The enchanted duplicator, again, you'll observe picture of a duplicator, but not just a picture, a whole, what would you call it? Allegorical fable, should we say. It was done in the style of Pilgrim's Progress, and it was basically an allegorical fable of somebody finding their way through fandom, and he's searching for the enchanted duplicator. And there's all these obstacles on the way, and eventually he finds the enchanted duplicator, and it's this beaten up ratty old duplicator, and he says, "This is the enchanted duplicator?" And then he turns it, and lo and behold, magic happens, and the whole thing is that the enchanted duplicator is the one with a true fan at the handle. So in other words, it doesn't matter about the state of it, it's just the love you put into it and what you produce from it.
Many things come to mind when
I hear the word Gestetner, but there's one thing in particular which I think of every time, and that's Writers' Forum and Bob Cobbing, jump cut. When he was using his Gestetner, Bob used to sing with or to the machine. And I think of it now as being like a cat purring. That's from a visual poem intended as a score for performance. Are your children safe in the sea?
They were a way for poets who were just starting out to get their poetry published, but also for more experienced poets to experiment away from the limelight, if you will. People in over 400 places up and down the country publish small numbers of magazines. Together, this represents a considerable cottage industry, an often mimeograph revolution that set some of the ground rules for the successive publishing changes from photocopy to desktop publication and onto the internet world of e-zines. So suddenly, you had small presses, little poetry magazines, were putting out the experimental verse that was becoming available around the country.
Nuttall envisaged mimeo'd as a paper exhibition of words, pages, spaces, holes, edges, and images. Like Olson's experience with Floating Bear, Burroughs could get feedback from a receptive audience immediately, since the turnaround time on the Mimeo machine was so rapid. It had to be because Burroughs' approach to the cut-up was changing so rapidly.
Which is Takejiro Shimizu continued his own work as a mimeograph artist. Shimizu first encountered mimeographs in 1935. The beauty of mimeograph printing by Shimizu began from his acceptance of its weakness.
The first one is quite understandably the widely acknowledged remarkable quality of being the first personal printer, which has given the mimeograph a specific historical role to reappropriate the means of print production on an almost personal level. The essential nature of the mimeograph is to be social, mobile, and connective, establishing trust human networks as an integral part of its own systems of operations. So first, it is obviously social because usually it involves more people for its whole production, so for its whole production cycle, which takes time and skills. And it surely involves more people for the physical distribution of the outcomes. Second, it is mobile, as its relative weight allows it to be moved from one place to the other, which reinforces its social dimension, as these places should belong to trusted people, usually different from the producers. Not by accident, as you all know, the mimeograph quickly became the ideal clandestine printing device. It could be moved from place to place, avoiding confiscation and fighting censorship, while producing a reasonable amount of copies. Finally, it is connective, as the distribution of copies implies a physical connection between the person handling them or shipping them. And here we have the physical address, which for us means a reliable thing to relate with, from the person handling them and the one receiving it. The essential social role of the mimeograph is about this physical contact. The political use of mimeograph has peaked in Italy just before and during the Second World War, as probably has happened also in various other countries, used by opposite factions of the ongoing civil war. The anti-fascist resistance movement, so-called the partigiani, was using it for various propaganda, leaflets and publications with sensible underground organized distribution. And there are plenty of stories, you can also find them online, of risky moving of mimeographs during the curfew at that time from one place, not anymore secure, to a new, better one. But it is worth to note that also the Istituto Nazionale di Cultura Fascista, the National Institute of Fascist Culture, used the mimeograph to conveniently produce copies of forbidden communist ideology literature, entirely translated, typewritten, and stamped as classified, available only to its members within its walls.
One of the reasons why they were particularly interested in a press, I think, was because Gestetners and other mimeograph machines were sort of almost outlawed, boycotted in Mexico at the time, or if you had one, then you could sort of be in danger.
It was really, at the beginning it was the mimeo. Mimeo was everything. It was fantastic, and we could experiment with different ways of using the mimeo, different ways of printing on cardboard or sticking things on or using different coloured inks.
And so Syphilopedia is a loose-knit international group of experimental artists and performers combining traditional and innovative sound media, dance and theatre with a neuroscience edge.
So this is the description of what we're going to do. Okay, yeah. Ollie wrote this, very good. We now come to the performance by Cephalopedia. It involves audience participation, and we hope that many of you will be inspired to join us. What we'll be attempting to do is to emulate the kitchen publication scenario in the production of around 50 copies of a publication made up of around 10 poems. The poems are all to be 5 lines in length and are to be written by you, the audience. For the first stage, members of the group will move among the audience, collecting the lines of the poems. 1 line per person. Just 1 line we ask you to write. Okay. These will be written by you on pieces of paper that will be folded so that no one will be able to see the preceding lines. Remember the game Consequences? Like that. Please write clearly, because Zoe is going to have to type the stuff up. While this is happening, the group will produce sounds initiated by their brainwaves, I'm wearing. These will be accompanied by sounds generated by the cutting of vegetables and music from the double bass. Once we have the poems, they'll be typed up and duplicated on the mimeograph. While this is going on, we'd like to ask members of the audience to come up to the table on my left, yes, and decorate their own booklet covers. To do this, we'll be providing crayons and paints and vegetables. Yes, vegetables, you can see beautiful vegetables sitting there, which can be used to print designs on the covers. Once the covers are completed, they'll be hung up to dry. Please note, please write your name on your cover if you wish to own it privately and take it home with you. But if you want it to be freely available, not have that particular one, you don't have to write your name, okay? Finally, we'll have a collating and stapling party in which members of the audience will, we hope, join us. Those who have not yet decorated their own covers can use plain card covers if they wish. We have a wide selection of different coloured cards. Can we, at that stage, have around 10 people at a time, no more, coming up to do the collation and decoration of covers to avoid congestion, of which there's too much in this city already. Okay? Do you want to whistle? Yeah, but all right, okay. So, there we are. We can begin.